Hey there, welcome to the second vlog in this series. A little bit different to the normal kind of videos that I put out on the channel. In case this is the first time you're watching, I'm Richard. I'm a chartered psychologist and coach. And this channel is all about sharing insights from the world of psychology to help you be your better self at work. In these kinds of videos, I step away from the how-to and the instructional type content to give you more of an insight into what it's like to be a practitioner psychologist and answer some of your questions. This is the first one of these I've recorded in 2024, so I think I can still say Happy New Year. I hope it's begun on a positive note for you. So what have I been up to since recording the last video like this? Well, survived Christmas, and in the first week of January I moved offices. Not just moving from an office to the next office along, but to another building, to another neighborhood actually. And I thought I'd share this, one, because I quite like my new office, and I'll pop some photos on here while I'm talking, but also because it was a really nice little insight into how I needed to use some of my skills that I bring to life in coaching with others for myself in dealing with this, because the move is a change. I'm not a huge fan of change. I do like novelty, but change that I have to work through, not a big fan of that. And so moving from one office to another involved me trusting people, trusting the moving company to bring my stuff from one neighborhood to another, from one building to another, and not break anything, not lose anything. It brought home my need for control, and I couldn't control it. I could box things up carefully, and I could give them instructions and all of that stuff, but then it was out of my hands, and that was an interesting experience. It lasted just a morning. They packed everything up, they took it away, and then I had to wait for them to come back from their lunch break, actually, and then unload everything. I had to accept. Acceptance is really useful. I had to accept this is not all in my control. I had to accept the fact that it's uncomfortable to see all of your belongings disappear in the back of two trucks, which explains why I needed a moving company to help me move office. It's a long time since I could move all of my professional stuff in a backpack. Let's put it that way. I've accumulated quite a few bits and pieces, but I had to accept that that was going to be uncomfortable, and I had to sit with that because it was, completely out of my control. And my options were sort of, be all over and micromanage these guys, or simply just sit back and let them do what they do best. And it worked out really well. In fact, by the end of the first day, with the help of my other half, we had unpacked all of the boxes and got 95% of stuff where it needed to be in the office. But, there was those few hours of, how is it going when I can't see what's happening? So an interesting reflection for me on the need to acknowledge a need for control and to accept the uncomfortable stuff that comes with doing important things. Another aspect of this I find really funny in the last week is that this move consumed a lot of my mental bandwidth for a while, and setting things up so that I was ready to go in the first working week of January. That consumed a lot of my attention, a lot of my focus. And until I told them, people on video calls with me had no idea I'd moved. It made me laugh because all of this effort, this focus, this slight bit of panic to get ready, no one else was paying attention to it. And I think this is a good lesson for me in general, that we pay so much more attention to ourselves than everyone around us is. They don't necessarily notice this stuff that we're really conscious of. So when I was on video calls, I was really conscious that in the background it wasn't exactly how I'd like it to be. Of course, the people on calls with me were not going through the shelves behind me to see was everything lined up. They were focused on the conversation we were having. So what is it that you're paying attention to? What is it that you're noticing? Where is your focus? It's going to be different for each of us. So what else have I been working on? Well, I've been planning and organizing a webinar later this month. So at the time of recording, we're in January. It's going to be on January 25th, and it's all about coaching. This time of year, whether I like it or not, people are really focused on making changes. I'm a big advocate of the belief that you can have a day one on any day of the year, but society, at least Western society, says January 1st is a great time to make these changes. So while people might be talking about and reflecting on their need to set goals or achieve something this year, or make some changes in their life, I want to step in and illustrate how coaching could be a really helpful tool in the toolkit. So if you are considering coaching, then you might find it useful to join me for this free webinar on January 25th. I'll put a link in the notes below. I'm just going to be explaining what coaching is and what it's not, effectively answering lots of the questions I get as a coach. How do you get the most out of it? How long does it take? What can I expect in the conversations? Along the way, I'm going to bust a few myths, some common misunderstandings about coaching, and then hopefully leave the audience with a much better understanding of what's involved in coaching and whether coaching is something that they could potentially use to get where they want to be. So every couple of weeks, I publish a podcast called My Pocket Psych, which is all about productivity and well-being and careers and interpersonal effectiveness in the workplace. And obviously, I love having guests on. So the most recent episode of that features a conversation I had with fellow psychologist and podcaster Ross McIntosh. You might know Ross if you listen to podcasts like mine. He has a fantastic podcast called People Soup. I really enjoy listening to it. I really enjoy listening to him, and I learn a lot from his exploration of these topics. So he came and joined me for a conversation all about leadership and a concept called authentic leadership. And we explored the personal qualities and skills and attitudes that leaders can bring to life to fundamentally make sure they're doing a better job. One of the main reasons I'm recording videos like this is to answer questions that people have about what I do and how I do it and so on. And this time around, I'd like to answer a question that I get a lot. If I share with someone that I am a psychologist, inevitably there is one form of the following questions. How do you become a psychologist, or what's involved in that? How long would it take me to become a psychologist, and so on. So I'm going to boil that down and share with you my own route to becoming the practitioner I am today. I want to caveat all of this with the fact that I'm describing my route, which includes training in Ireland and the UK, and I'm well aware that training routes differ enormously depending on what geographical location you're in. The regulations, the training pathways, in the terminology will all differ from place to place. It makes it slightly complicated, but as you're listening to this, just bear in mind I'm talking about Ireland and the UK, where the systems are much more similar and almost interchangeable. They're not exactly the same, but there's mutual recognition of each other's qualifications to a large extent. So way back in the mists of time, I did my undergraduate degree in Trinity College, Dublin, and that was a 4-year degree in psychology. And pretty quickly after starting that, a number of us had the horrible realization that 4 years of training would not qualify us to be psychologists. It's the academic underpinning that will lead to something else, but doesn't make you a psychologist. What's really important is, if you want to be a practitioner, is postgraduate training. So after I graduated, I had an inkling, a vague understanding, I'll put it that way, of the route I wanted to take, but because effectively you have to choose at that point. What kind of psychologist do I want to be? And the training pathways are split up. So depending on what your desired endpoint is, you have to follow one pathway or another. So if I wanted to be a health psychologist, I'd have to do one training. If I wanted to be a clinical psychologist, I'd have to do another. Now, what I was really interested in was the psychology of work and the workplace. And so that meant I would have to do postgraduate training in that space. And the reason for that, the reason for my interest, is that I saw it as something that's almost universal. Either people are at work, or they're looking for work, or they live with someone who works, or they have worked. But it's a big part of people's identities. It's a big part of our lives. And I thought studying this and working in this space will be both interesting and will keep me busy because of the nature of change in the workplace. Now, I did my master's degree here in London. I had to relocate to do that, and that was in what's called occupational psychology. I don't have time today, or possibly the energy today, to explain just how much I dislike that term occupational psychology. I think it's quite dated, and it really doesn't, I think, translate very well into everyday conversation with people. What we're really talking about is work psychology, the psychology of work and careers and workplaces. The name of the degree was occupational psychology, and I very much planned to move straight back to Dublin and pursue a career there. Having applied for jobs towards the end of the master's degree, I actually got a job here in London, so I ended up staying, and I started my career as an internal consultant at Royal Mail. That was the most fantastic start to my career I could have hoped for because of the variety of tasks and projects I was involved in. There are a number of competencies and practice areas you need to get exposure to within my field. And I got exposed to all of them bar one: evaluating physical workplaces and ergonomics, conducting research into how people thought and felt about their work, looking at aspects of well-being in the workplace and organizational change. All of these topics that are really, really interesting and part of the role of being a workplace psychologist. Now, the area I didn't cover in any great depth, but I did after I left Royal Mail, was selection and assessment. The science of assessing people's capabilities and personality to estimate their fit for a role as part of recruitment or promotion processes. After I left Royal Mail, I went through a series of years working in consultancy, but I then had what's called chartered status. It's like the professional accreditation. You are now recognized, one, to work independently, because up until that point I'd been working under the supervision of someone much more qualified and experienced than me, and then building up a logbook, a literal, in those days, logbook of experience in the different areas of occupational or work psychology. So then I was chartered, and then I could work by myself, and for many practitioners in my space, that's the end of it. But I chose, for reasons, to undertake a doctorate. A few years later, I did that while working full-time, and ironically, if I can't do it, but picture Spock raising one eyebrow, ironically, I did that on the topic of work-life balance, of which I had none for the 5 years it took me to complete the doctorate. I loved it. I really enjoyed the vast majority of it. I won't say all of it. I still have dreams about my Viva exam, but I really enjoyed it. I learned a lot. And I think that was the point at which I said, you know, that's enough of the academic training. And then just a few months later, I was back learning new skills and learning new things because it's part of who I am. I really like to learn things. But of course, the learning doesn't end when you become a chartered psychologist or do your doctorate. As a psychologist, you're a scientist, and so you need to keep up to date with developments in your science and engage in continuing professional development, CPD. Keep reading the papers, keep up to date with what the new evidence is saying, and not get stuck in an understanding of the science of psychology that existed when you originally trained. Because I would say that in the 20-something years I've been working as a practitioner, our understanding of lots of how people think, feel, and behave in the workplace has evolved. And it's really important to stay up to date with that. So in one sense, my formal training ended with the doctorate, but in another, my ongoing development and acquisition of skills and knowledge, it's never ended. It really hasn't, and that for me works really well. But if you have a mindset of, I want to do training so I can be a psychologist, that might be a bit of a surprise to you, that might be a bit of a disappointment to you. Maybe today's the day you learned that a degree in psychology doesn't make you a psychologist. So that's why I thought I would outline that journey for you today, because it is surprising to people when I talk it through, and they are surprised at just how long it can take to get where you want to be in this space. Now, in recent years, the area of coaching psychology, the science of coaching psychology, has really evolved and come on leaps and bounds. And now in the UK, we can become a chartered coaching psychologist. So that's what I am now. I'm both occupational and coaching psychologist. And to be honest, I spend more of my time working as a coaching psychologist than I do anything else. I haven't forgotten all of my training as an occupational psychologist. It's back there somewhere, but predominantly I'm working in this space of coaching people, doing team development, running training programs, and so on. And that's the stuff that I really, really love. And it's taken me all this time It's about 9.5 years since I started my own business. It's taken me the majority of up to that time to sort of whittle away all the other areas that I had to learn how to do or I could do, but wasn't really passionate about. And that brings me today to being a coaching psychologist who coaches individuals, works with teams, and runs training and development programs. And I work across 3 areas: helping people with their well-being at work, helping people with their productivity at work, and with their interpersonal effectiveness. Something people who know me know about me is that I loathe the term soft skills because I think it demeans them. They're incredibly important skills and they're very difficult to learn. And so this interpersonal effectiveness side of things, that reflects my real interest and passion for helping people get along with others, communicate well with others, develop all of the self-awareness and skills and attributes that help them leverage their technical skills. So the things they get taught technically how to do, these are made much more impactful when we can relate to other human beings at work in a more effective way. So that's the space I work in now. Possibly quite different, no, incredibly different to what was in my mind's eye way back when I started my undergraduate degree, where I think my understanding of what a psychologist does was what the majority of people think, a small office with a couch talking about someone's dreams. So I don't do that at all. I hope it's been interesting. I hope it's filled in a few blanks for you. Please, if you've got questions about what it's like to be a psychologist or the training routes, bearing in mind it's many years since I completed my chartership and it's evolved quite a bit, but I will do my very best to answer those questions in a subsequent video. So please drop them into the comments section below and like this if you liked it. But for now, thanks for watching.